All right, the Lions get back on track. This might be one of my favorite picks, and I'm gonna explain why. Brian Branch. They moved up with Green Bay, I believe, from the 48th to the 45th pick. Um, yeah, from 48 to 45, they gave up 150, the 159th overall pick to move up three spots for Green Bay. You don't really see a lot of interdivision trades or whatever the situation may be. If you under what was 159, it is a fifth round pick from Jacksonville. So that's what they acquired. And I like this pick. Like I wasn't sure. Michael knew more about Brian Branch than I did, but I heard him kind of mention it. Was he was saying he was surprised that Brian Branch had fell all the way to the second round. He started to kind of slide in there too. Um, he was surprised that Brian Branch had had slid, and they took Charlie Gardner Johnson. They had Tracy Walker coming back. If you've seen some of the workout videos he posted on social media, and they look really, really good, right? Okay, I'm gonna tell you something about the dynamic before I get into Brian Branch. The dynamic of what they're doing is with Gardner Johnson, he can play everywhere. He can play the deep half. He can play the slot. He can guard. He can guard guys on the edge. People don't know Tracy Walker was a corner at University of Louisiana Lafayette. He can play. He can guard guys at the cornerback position too. He can do the nickel. But the thing that I noticed about the three DBs is Tracy Walker spent a lot of time in the box. Right, tremendous amount of time in the box. He's more known here in Detroit as a box safety than he was, coming out of college as a cover safety. Kirby Joseph is a deep half. He gonna play the deep half. Um, but underneath, you have three really good tacklers with Brian Branch, Gardner Johnson, and Tracy Walker. The thing about Gardner Johnson and Tracy Walker, they also can cover as well too. So I mean, Brian Branch can cover deep half, even though what really happened with him, he ran a 4.58, and people didn't like his athleticism, right? I think he plenty athletic. Looking at his tape, but he's gonna come in. He played. They call it the star defender in the Alabama defense. He's gonna come in and play. What he's gonna do? He's a top rated safety. He's gonna come in. He's gonna play that nickel position, that kind of that star nickel position. And what he allows you to do is he give you run support from the nickel back position. He also gives you some coverage underneath. He really good covering underneath. Really smart guy underneath. So he gives you the ability to have a DB that can cover underneath, but also he can fill the gap, rush the passer, or blitz the passer coming off the edge. So he got good ball skills, um, good coverage underneath, good in run support, good blitzer, smart football player. So now you kind of got three guys that can kind of do the same thing. So I think you're gonna see a lot of him, in the nickel. You're gonna see a lot of him, probably spying underneath, not spying, but what you call it, kind of underneath type zone. I forget what they call it, man. Robin. You're gonna see a lot of him in the flats. You're gonna see a lot of him in the nickel, where they had two linebackers out there, which kind of was, in my opinion, kind of was their base defense last year, where they had two linebackers out there. Excuse me. And then the cornerback. And what they're gonna ask him to do is a lot, and they ask him to do a lot at Alabama. They're gonna ask him to play underneath in those flat coverages. They're gonna ask him to guard tight ends. They're gonna ask him to guard running backs. They're gonna ask him to blitz off the edge, run support, and that allows you to still have a DB who can cover, but also a DB who can support the run. And a lot of those guys that played that joker and that star position in the National Football League, um, they didn't really succeed. Mark Barron, Alabama, whatever. But I think he a little bit different, a lot different. Um, Everybody don't touch the run well, but can you play well? And I think he'd be asked to do some things. And I also think this could be, in my opinion, I think this could be Malcolm Jenkins, not Malcolm Jenkins. This could be what you call it, C.J. Gardner Johnson insurance next year if he leaves. So cornerback position, they ask him to do a lot, but it's a position in which they acclimate pretty quickly. You see what Kirby Joseph did. Where Kirby Joseph, he was a guy that played underneath, that played the deep half of the field. Brian Branch could do some of those things as well too. So, um, yeah, man, I like him, man. I like it a lot. It's probably one of my favorite picks so far. I mean, he had 3 sacks last year. He had a bunch of tackles for loss in the Cotton Bowl, wasn't it? 90 total tackles. He had 2 picks last year, 3 in his whole career with Alabama. They asked him to do a lot. They lean on him a lot. So the athleticism, man. I mean, as long as it ain't too bad, which I don't think it is. Most safeties are. What does Braylon Edwards say? Most safeties are corners who don't have the feet. But you got Gardner Johnson who could play safety and corner, who got the feet. You got Tracy Walker who could do the same thing. So that's the crazy thing about it, man. They got a lot of versatility, but I think with Gardner Johnson and Branch and Tracy Walker bring you somebody that can fill the gap, who can also, who not gonna compromise and cover so much, but they also give you run support. So I can play with 2 linebackers. If I go to a dime situation, guess what? I got somebody who could fill the run if somebody spread it out and want to run. So some of his weaknesses are small delay in finding first gear at the top drop. How he's dropped. He said could use tighter route, squeeze relative down and distance, becomes a drag down tackler when comes in too high. I know these things can be corrected. Occasionally outflanks as a run defender from the slot, and that just asks him to do a lot. But his strengths is football intelligence through the roof. Has range NFL.com, by the way, range and extinction to play single high safety. There you go. Once again, versatility. He can play the box. He can play single high. So you got that with Kirby Joseph. Fast, fluid, very strong with his for his size. Pedals and transitions with smooth and agile feet, able to mirror and match patterns from off man. Reactive quickness and burst to hound the route. Uses ball hawking angles and explosive bursts to undercut the pass. Reads receiver's eyes to cut his head turn. Receiver's eyes to cue his head turn downfield, and that was the issue for the Lions. Remember when like Brandon Marshall played for the Chicago Bears, and there was another big tall receiver they had too that played out there, man. That played out there. And I forget, it might have been Musa. I don't want to say it was Musa Muhammad. It couldn't be. It was another receiver. It was, I can't think of that man's name. But it was two, and we just couldn't get our head around. We couldn't get our head around this. It was a long time for Detroit where they had DBs who just couldn't get their head around to play the ball. They would be in position, but they couldn't turn around and play the ball. And I didn't know what that shit was about. But for years we couldn't turn around and play the ball. And his size. I mean, if you're wondering about his size, he is 6 foot 190, solid. Fayetteville, Georgia, stand up. So right out of Alabama. I think that might be my favorite pick. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. We turned into I joked on Twitter after the Sam Laporta pick, Iowa Hawkeyes or the Detroit Hawkeyes or the Iowa Lions, or you can make a case. We can turn into the Detroit Crimson Tide or the Alabama Lions. So they do have a Detroit in Alabama. So it is what it is, man. Let me know what you girls and guys think. Shout out to Brian Branch, man. Shout out to all the guys that's been drafted. We may not love all these picks, but I love this one in particular. I love the first two was just the tight end, just got PSTD, whatever you call it, from tight ends flopping in Detroit. But shout out to Brian Branch, 45th pick, traded up with the Green Bay to get him. Only gave up I think what I said, 159th pick to move up 3 spots. So appreciate the love support. One time for the one time, and that pick I think we got that from Arizona. We gave them the 81st pick. So check out Detroit Lions Talk playlist. Peace.